Welcome to the Game Masters Book Club, where great fiction becomes your next great tabletop role-playing experience. This book has everything. Murder most strange, in a world where massive kaiju attacks are common, and their mutagenic blood, the backbone of the Empire of Canum. Keren Form, Colleen Nachtrieb, and Roger Alix Goudreau examine Robert Jackson Bennett's The Tainted Cup with the skill of investigator Delabra and her assistant Din. Let's get into the conversation.
And there he is, Craig. He's here. He's there. He's everywhere. I just can't see Craig as Roy Kent, though, so that doesn't work for me.
I'm a grown man. I get paid to play a game, and I'm mad about it all the time.
Mr. Grouchy
One of my
Pants.
favorite scenes.
This is not, in fact, a Ted Lasso review show. This is, in fact, the Game Masters Book Club, and I am here with three Game Masters who have joined us before, but never all together, so this is going to be great. I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you as today we talk about The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I'm very excited about this book. I'm very excited about this author, and I'm very excited to talk with our Game Masters about the two questions. That's right. We're going to split this up a bit. We're going to have two questions. That's because this book is a kind of a two-part book. It not only is a fantastic murder mystery, but it is also a book with kaiju in it. And that's an unusual combination. So our game masters are going to talk about either kaiju or how they've run a murder mystery in their game. And we're going to start with Colleen. Colleen, you want to introduce yourself to the folks and let them know kaiju or investigation, which one you're going to talk about.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Colleen Nachtrieb, game designer out here in Boston, Massachusetts, and I love murder mysteries. I haven't really gotten to play anything with kaiju before, but I have done a lot of murder mysteries. I recently run Brindlewood Bay, a lot of different conventions that I haunt. Brindlewood Bay is a fantastic game, has built by the Apocalypse kind of setups of playbooks or building your character, but you play as an older woman, someone in their golden years, very much like Golden Girls meets Murder, She Wrote. And the end mechanic, after you've collected enough clues in the game, your group gets together and hypothesizes what the murder could have been. And if you roll successfully, your theory is correct, and whatever the table has generated as the solve or the resolution for the murder happens. And then crazy stuff can happen. The actual murder can unfold. So one time I was running it, we're on a cruise ship, and everybody did hypothesize, and they figured out that it was the butler and the ex-wife. But they unfortunately at the time were hanging from rafters, having been kidnapped by the murderer themselves. And so the butler came in to reveal himself and put them all in danger, and they had to figure out a way to escape, ending the wonderful story. So murder mysteries are fun. They're often very hard, but Brindlewood Bay is an excellent system if you enjoy a little bit of SAS and Cthulhu. Because if you do a campaign at Brindlewood Bay...
Wait, what?
Yes, if you do a Brindlewood Bay campaign, there is a larger mystery arc that is a dark cult. It actually has Greek ties, but it is very Cthulhu-like as well.
If you like Brindlewood Bay, and I know we're supposed to save media recommendations at the end, but this doesn't have anything to do with the book itself, but it sounds like you would enjoy Kills Well with Others by Deanna Raybourn. There are two books in the Killers of a Certain Age. It is about four aging women who are part of who used to be like Nazi assassins, and now they're in their golden years, and the company wants to take them out. And they survive, and they do a fantastically amazing job of surviving, even while throwing their backs out and doing all the things that older people do all the time. So I highly recommend Killers of Certain Age, and Deanna Raybourn is an amazing writer, so anything she writes is great, but those are hilarious.
That is perfect. Actually, that book is on my wish list because you recommended it to me before.
I wasn't sure if I had, but I was like, oh my God, I got to say it again because Killer's always great. Speaking of someone who is definitely not an old lady and possibly not a killer, Roger, do you want to talk to the folks about your gaming journey briefly and about whether you're going to either kaiju or investigation?
I can confirm that I am neither an old lady nor a killer unless you count spiders and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been gaming for 40 plus years, most of that D&D. In younger days, I dabbled in a lot of other things. I guess at the time, would be the equivalent of like the indie game scene nowadays, which sadly I don't dabble in nearly as much, though I have been dabbling as a result of this podcast. So thank you, Eric, and everyone for inspiring me to do that. So I'm going to go with the Kaiju. Being a longtime player of D&D, runner of D&D, I have, of course, used the Tarask. Everybody's got two at some point or another. And I've done the whole, like, living island thing. I had a mimic village. The entire village was mimics. That was a great deal of fun. The looks on the players' faces were just to die for. But I think my favorite Kaiju or Kaiju adjacent encounter was, of course, the Titans of the Sea, right? The Kraken. And in fourth edition, fifth edition rules, like Kraken they're demigods, basically. They're incredibly powerful. They're intelligent. They have magic and so on and so forth. And I'd been running a game with a bunch of aquatic elements, and there were, evidence of. It was almost like I had not quite deep ones, but I had that theme, had that feel. There was a lot of elements of sort of Cthulhu about it, and in fact, Dagon was a force in the game, and the PCs are down in the lightless, crushing depths of the ocean. And they're facing this kraken that they've been tracking and trying to thwart for some time. And the reason I remember this so well is that I was in the full-on grip of my role-playing, and the kraken was shouting at them, mentally, of course, because they use telepathy. And he goes on and on about how worthless they are and how insignificant they are. And he says, because I am the left tentacle of Dagon. Thinking, of course, being the left hand of the villain, right? The position of honor. I said left tentacle. The table broke out in laughter because they thought I said left testicle, and I have never lived it down.
NT, very important.
Yes, we still talk about it years and years later.
Okay, Keren. I don't know. It's going to be tough to follow that one, but
yeah, I don't know if I can follow it up.
Let's see how you do.
Hey, I'm Keren. I'm sock designer by day, GM by night. I've been role playing since the early 90s. I guess maybe that does qualify me as an old lady. Who knows? And I am going to go with the mystery track here. I love a good murder mystery. I started running a game called Birder Murders, which is sort of based on British cozy mysteries, where it's a group of people in 1920s village of Eggington, England, that are bird watchers, and then, of course, come upon murders and have to solve them. I've been running it for a few years now. We started in 1928. It's now 1931. I run it like once a year or something like that. My players have all come up with the classic archetypes. We've got like the shy village vicar, the eccentric old socialite, and her best friend, the sort of nanny-og-inspired granny. They have their sort of rivals in the next village over, the Leighton Buzzard Ramblers. They've got village vets, and then on top of that, have to solve the weekly or bi-weekly murder. When it comes to running mysteries in general, I've before, cribbed from stories I know other people haven't read, but also created my own, which generally results in a lot of sort of extensive flowcharts and diagrams with suspects and clues sort of pasted up all over my desk. But I always make sure that people find clues, even if they're not in the correct room or place, because it really kind of stinks if you go through a mystery not finding out who done it. My favorite part of this whole thing is that the first time my players created characters, everybody sort of came up with what British actor was playing them. So now every single time I create a new mystery, I get to, pick which British actors are playing each of the guest stars on the show, which is fun because I have absolutely no budget and I can grab whoever I want to.
That is awesome. You can have anyone. It's fantastic. My name is Eric Jackson, and I'm the host of the show. I've been playing since the Pleistocene, and I absolutely adore Kaiju. I think having a giant monster is the best way to go. A really fantastic set piece. They have all kinds of really cool powers. I really like them particularly when you start getting up there in levels, but also for lower level characters, because it's really obvious that you should run away from Godzilla. So it takes a little while for them to get brave, powerful / stupid enough to be able to stand there and fight them. I recently, current gaming group from college, who I'm running with on Roll20, and they recently had a giant coral monster that came into the bay, and they had to fight it off, and it like spawned off little creatures, and those creatures changed people into other little creatures, and then it like had They're just so versatile. You can just do so much with a kaiju, and they're just this giant thing, and it's something that everybody always likes to talk about. So I'm a big fan. One of the reasons why I love this book. I really enjoyed this book. I had a great time with it, and I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit more about it. The World Fantasy and Hugo Award-winning book by Robert Jackson Bennett, The Tainted Cup, takes place on an Earth that never was. One where specially bred mushrooms are air conditioners, flesh-eating vines are restrained by alchemical reagent keys, and the powerful and widespread empire of Kanum imbues its servants with bio-implants that greatly enhance strength, senses, and skills, while simultaneously defending against kaiju attack from massive seawall defenses with massive cannons. All of this world building takes place while a series of Byzantine murders, which implicates the powerful nobles of this empire, take place. The eccentric investigator Anna Delabra and her newly minted, memory-modified, and secretly dyslexic Din Cole, they are our fantasy Holmes and Watson, and they are set out to solve a case in a city that is currently being threatened by kaiju attack. This book has, as many mysteries do, a great deal to say about justice or the illusion of justice, the existence of one set of laws for the rich and the other set for everyone else, the epic level of corruption that can occur in large empires, and most importantly, what it would be like to live in a world that actually had kaiju. All those things get addressed, and I really like this book. How did you guys feel about it? Karen?
I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much, I immediately read the second one, and I'm very much looking forward to the third. I feel that calling it a Sherlock Holmes mystery is kind of selling it short because it does have the investigator and assistant, but it's not the like bumbling Watson sort of following around being like, good God, Holmes, I can't believe you figured that out. I really liked that both Anna and Din were very competent in their own ways and also incompetent in their own ways, and they complemented each other really nicely.
Yeah, it's the symbiosis.
Yeah.
In the original, the Holmesian thing is Holmes doesn't seem to be able to keep himself stable without having someone to sort of watch out for him. And in this case, in this one, that's also the case. But our Watson also needs help. More codependence than dependent in this one.
Yeah, but not in an unhealthy way.
No, not in another way, no. Roger, anything you want to add about the book?
I loved it. I mean, I had heard about it and then I selected it. I read it because it was a Hugo winner, which I'm making my policy to do that all the time now. But I agree with what Karen said, right? I loved that Cole was not Watson. The relationship is there, sort of the mentor-mentee, but I really loved that he was a driving force in the story. And I loved watching the magic system, magic in quotes, because it's really biopunk. But I loved watching the magic system unfold and how the nature of the magic system played a part in the unfolding mystery. Not only did each individual character's gifts shape how they contributed to the investigation and what was going on, but then how each character's gifts shaped their motivations and what they did, and strengths and weaknesses were very important. That was a way of bringing the world building and the magic into the plot in a way that I don't think I've seen done quite this way before. I really enjoyed it.
Colleen?
I too went and bought the second book right after reading this book because I loved it so much, and then pre-ordered the third book, and then just started devouring everything this author writes. I kind of have a problem,
Not a problem. We're all like that. It's cool.
but
No.
yeah,
It's really a problem of
It's really
time or shelf space, really. That's really the problem.
I definitely enjoyed the mystery. I loved the augmentation mechanics. I loved the world, how everything was described. I also truly enjoy that in this world of augmented people where everyone has some kind of special gift, there are still these neurodiverse people. So like both Anna and Din have something additional to themselves outside their augmentations that make them feel outsider to the world, yet give them advantages in their investigation.
It is a very well-developed world. It's very, very, very well built. Well, speaking of building worlds, if we were going to take a look at this particular story, if we wanted to bring the Tainted Cup to our tabletop, we'd need a system to do it in. I'm going to start with Karen. Karen, do you want to talk to the folks about what system you would use to best evoke the feeling of the Tainted Cup?
Absolutely. I feel that I would run this in the Gumshoe system. It's my favorite one to do mysteries in. I actually started doing my Birder Murders in Gumshoe until I got lazy and pared it down to my roll 2 dice and add bonuses, and I guess we're doing that. But what I love about Gumshoe is the game is focused on interpreting the clues, not just missing them because you spent the entire night having bad rolls. It's, obviously no fun if everybody's floundering around because of flub trance rolls. It also relies on sort of the character abilities that they come up with. So you can create these specialized investigators and then feel really cool when you're like, hey, I know everything about bones. That over there's definitely a pile of patellas that are only from left legs. Isn't that weird? I think it gives the characters lots of moments to really shine and come up with, their individuality to make the game more fun, especially since one of the people I've been playing with for like 20 years somehow always in the past few years inadvertently in a way makes a character that like loves to take soil samples and do that kind of forensic study. So it's sort of a perfect niche for her.
Everyone's got to have their favorite forensic thing that they enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Roger, thoughts on the system?
Well, of course, Cypher system can do anything. Although in the magic system lacks overt magic, one could take that to suggest that there's no adept in the world. But I think with some proper reflavoring, right, you could tweak the skills. The apatheticals are absolutely your adept class. And then I think the warriors and explorers and speakers that are the 4 core classes of the Cypher system, all have good fits in the outlets of the setting. But I think I would be tempted to try my new crush in terms of gaming is Daggerheart, which has a much more kind of fantasy and whimsical feel to it. But one of the things I love about it is that they have this whole section in the back of the book about creating campaign frames where you can devise a setting, right, for a game with pretty much any flavor that you could reasonably plug these characters and abilities and stuff into. And in fact, they have one campaign frame in the back of the book called the Drylands, which has rules for colossi, which are essentially mechanical kaiju. So the book gives you great starting point to create a kaiju flavored game, but they also provide a bunch of guidelines for how you might choose to constrain classes, character races. But anyway, so you might choose to, eliminate the ribbits, for example, right, which are anthropomorphized frogs and what have you, because they may not fit. Or you might decide they do fit, right? This is a biopunk world, right? So in a world where an entire region is swampy and overgrown, you might very well have frog people. So I think a lot about it fits. The classes are a little more kind of classical and would need some reskinning in the more urban and biopunk direction, but the system is very collaborative, right? And it's got this action economy mechanic that keeps the story bouncing back and forth between the players and the GM. And it's got this great mechanic for building up this fear pool for the GM as things go wrong, and you build up this tension, and then the GM dumps a bunch of fear and a big encounter, and then the PCs have to sort of pivot it around. It gives that really powerful narrative swing back and forth that I think lends itself very well to some of the high stakes, high action moments that we saw in the book.
That sounds like a great use of the system. Colleen, what system do you think is going to best serve the Tainted Cup game that you are someday going to run?
So I actually have 2 systems. I don't fit them perfectly, but I can take different parts of the book and kind of apply them, or at least use the world setting and just apply the mechanics from these systems. So I had Blaze in the Dark. Blaze in the Dark, usually you have a crew. There's a big part of your crew, and I don't think that really works with what's in the book. But I do think that some of the settings in Blaze in the Dark gives you that walled off world that you have. You have these circles and these intrinsic rings that go deeper and deeper into the Empire. You can have that in Blaze in the Dark. You also have Leviathan, these giant kraken octopi that have the ink, and the ink fuels everything in Blaze in the Dark in the lore. So you could take that and alter it to be the Leviathan's blood, which also is used for all your augmentations and what they use to make reagents and reagent keys. It all comes from the big giant kaiju creatures. But there would have to be, you can still use the playbooks. You just probably wouldn't have a crew unless you change the game into, instead of being like a 2-person mystery solving, you could make it about any kind of the groups inside the Empire. So you could make it the Iodex. You can make like you're a part of the Iodex. And so now you're doing judgments like with other Iodex officers or any of the other officers in the military. You could do like a Blaze in the Dark crew like that. The other system was cyberpunk. So just like Roger saying biopunk, you could take your cyber tech and the augmentations that you have in cyberpunk and make them more bio-based and just change the world instead of cyberpunk, make it into this biopunk world. Because a lot of the themes in cyberpunk are also going up against the larger corporations. But in this case, you could just make it the corruption that's in the empire, which is exactly what Anna and Din are going up against. It's a little spoiler in the book, but there's a secret agents happening. But I do like the cyberpunk tech. Oh, the other interesting about cybertech in cyberpunk is that it makes you slowly go insane, or it slowly has negative effects, which is the same thing that happens to you when you get augmented too much. So eventually, like Din, memory starts to bleed and he starts seeing things. Well, he hasn't seen them yet, but other engravers do. So someone who has engraving starts to have their memory kind of hallucinate things. Same thing can happen in cyberpunk. So I thought that was a good mashup.
Absolutely. I think that's great. As we've already said, this book feels like a two-parter. There's this whole kaiju thing that's happening and the world that's built around that. And then there's this Byzantine Empire that exists as well. And that's sort of where I ended up. I did what Keren did in that I was looking at a Gumshoe hack called Trail of Cthulhu, which is a combination of Gumshoe and Call of Cthulhu. So it's got a lot of those great elements there, and it's got that great problem-solving aspect to it. And the other thing that I wanted to put in there, because as I've already said, I'm a big fan of putting kaiju in my game. There currently exists a book, Ryoku's Guide. It's made by this guy named Will. He runs a YouTube channel called D&D Shorts. I really enjoy those too, by the way. And he has a whole section on kaiju and how you can have those in your game. In that game, they have what's called a chaos threshold, which is unless you hit the kaiju in its particular vulnerable spot, it just basically gets madder and madder, and then it eventually rampages. That does happen at one point during the story. Also, this idea that they have these huge complicated powers, that they're all different, that they have these weird effects when they die, these death throw abilities. All of those complement what's happening in the book. And they have a really excellent crafting system, which includes using a lot of the parts of the kaiju to do magical things. So a lot of the biopunk stuff that we've been talking about is laid out for a D&D audience, at least in that regard. So I'd probably take in a lot of the problem solving from Trail of Cthulhu and then run the rest of it in D&D, mostly because one, it would be most people know it, and two, I'd probably get more players that way. So that's the systems. But let's be honest, we don't always get a time to sit back and go, you know what, I'm going to run a Tainted Cup game. But boy, wasn't there something super cool in that book that I'm totally going to put right into my game for the next time around. And that is going to bring us to our next section, which is where we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the portables, things we can take right out of the book. Roger, do you want to start and tell us the thing you'd probably want to take right out of the book and drop into your current campaign?
Sure, I would absolutely steal the reagent keys idea. I love the concept, right, of basically carrying around this little vial of a particular reagent that triggers a particular action in a plant, and the fact that the book has keys of various complexities means you can have essentially like easy to break in to more hard to break in to impossible to break in, and finding ways for PCs to like fake a key or do something like that. The other aspect of this idea that I really like, but I didn't see in the book, is the idea of short-term keys. You can create a reagent key, but the reagent's going to break down in the vial, and so you got to use the key within a certain time limit so you can add time pressure to an adventure, and that's what I would steal.
Fantastic. I'm already got 3 places I'm going to put that. So that's going to bring us to you, Keren. If you were something you're going to take on and drop into your current campaign, what would it be and why?
Sure. Well, I have the luxury because I'm in a group where we don't run long campaigns. So I don't have long running ones. I just run a game for like 2 to 3 weeks and then it goes to the next person. But what I would love to steal from this in general and sort of base a whole campaign around are the apatheticals. I absolutely adore the biopunk CSI. I really love any forensic element in a mystery. Maybe because I'm sad I never finished my master's in forensic anthropology, but Who knows? I just really like all the tech based on the plants and the organic matter, the dangers of maybe breathing in threatening debris. If anybody read Diamond Age, it's like the nanites that are sort of floating around medically threatening everybody, but it's with biopunk spores and how all these things have crazy unintended consequences, collateral damage, and just having a group of people that are scientists having to figure out just what is going on with all this crazy nonsense just sounds like so much fun.
Anytime you can throw in a little bit of extra science, always going to be a fun time. Colleen?
I just want to try running something with a kaiju. I love the idea of the kaiju, and I love the idea that their blood forms the world around them and transfers to people. So people are symbiotic with this giant creature that also comes by every season and murders everyone. I think that's fascinating. But also, giant monsters are really cool, and I can't believe I haven't run a game yet without.
Some sort of giant monster. They talk about how the kaiju before the Empire was there. They'd come onto the land and they'd die there, and weird, cool, giant deposits of magic / really good farmland would appear. So it reminded me kind of like El Nino, La Nina kind of a thing, where you have like it's an upwelling of material from the depths that comes onto the shore. What an interesting ecological way of redistributing material from one ecosystem to another, which is always really kind of fun.
I think it's so fascinating, and I feel like it's an overarching mystery on itself. Where the kaiju come from, who
100%.
they are, and how they evolved, and how everybody keeps taking their resources. It's so good.
And wasn't there something in the book about how they've been getting bigger and more violent?
Yes.
So clearly there's a bigger story there, and maybe in book 2 or 3 we'll hear more about that. I mean, obviously you all know. I don't yet know what's revealed about that in book 2, but I'm
And
looking
no one
forward
will
to it.
know until book 3. A Trade of Blood will be out on August 11th, 2026. So everyone set your calendars. As far as portables for me, we've already talked a little bit about the costs of magic, and this is developed certainly a bit more in book 2, where the idea that you have these powers and that you get from this material, but it all comes at a price, usually a little later down the road, but not always. From just a straight up want to take it right now, drop it into a game. I loved the locked sword scabbard. Boy, that was a tongue twister right there. The idea that there was like something that would lock it in there that would prevent you from using the super cool sword that's in there. So even if you stole someone's magic sword, you couldn't get it out because you'd have to know the combination to get it out of the scabbard. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I don't know how useful it is in a campaign, but it just felt like an interesting detail that I'd want to put into my game.
You know someone is going to ask how they destroy the
Yes, of
scabbard.
course. That's why you have to make the scabbard magical too, right? You've got to have to make it just as badass as the sword, or else it's never going to be a thing. So that's our portables. We are fast moving through this, and now we are moving on to the media portion of our discussion here. If folks really liked this book, if you thought the Tainted Cup was great and you wanted to get more inspiration like it for your campaign, for your games, or just had the right vibe, where would you want to go with this? Colleen, do you want to kick us off and tell us what has the right vibe and what is like the Tainted Cup?
The thing I grabbed that was Attack on Titan, which is both a manga and a show. You've got there's these giant titans, kaiju that attack. They have intricate circles, walls that they bust through, protected people, and there's a giant mystery around them. So I don't want to spoil the show or the manga, but it's very similar. It's got very biological, weird science vibes and deep mysteries that alter how you think
That's
about the world.
great. Roger, do you want to take on the second spot and tell us what books and media you think have the same vibe as the Tainted Cup?
Sure. So I have a few suggestions, all in the books area. For readers looking for something else by Robert Jackson Bennett, then I would recommend Foundry Side, which is the first book in an earlier series that he wrote. It's again, a very strongly built world, complex fantasy setting, cool mystery, and so on and so forth. If you're looking for a sort of apprentice master arrangement or mentor mentee arrangement in an investigative sense, Rivers of London is a good one. That's, however, got a very lighter tone, much more comic in spots. And then I went looking for some fantasy that showcases neurodivergent characters, right, who are handled respectfully, given characters in the Tainted Cup, are neurodivergent. And a couple of options there, I think, include Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. It's a cozier fantasy, but does have a main character that many reviewers say is autistic coded. Or if you want something darker, The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White has an autistic and trans main character, but again, handled very well.
Excellent. Keren, do you want to tell us about the things that you think are Tainted Cup adjacent?
Sure. I picked a few different things because there's so much to like about the book, and it depends what you like about it. Do you like kaiju or mystery solving or politics, corruption, and class disparity, or the cool magic or the biopunk? So, first off, I'm also going with an anime, Kaiju number 8. This is set in modern day Kyoto. It's also got kaiju showing up for reasons unknown, but it also has the, post-killing kaijus using their body parts or powers for weaponry and armor, people randomly getting kaiju powers for what reason we don't quite know yet. So, that's a fun one. Also, when it comes to animation, this gave me a lot of the same vibes as Arcane. It's got the authoritarian government, the poor versus rich, mysterious technologically or magically advanced precursors that delving too deep with powers you don't understand. But this is just, biopunk, and whereas Arcane is steampunk. Also, the entire time I pictured Din's uniform as that enforcer uniform that they wear in Arcane. When it comes to books, this kind of vibed also with The Will of the Many by James Islington, not sure how to pronounce it. From the beginning of the Tainted Cup, which also had these sort of faux Latin military rankings in the beginning, Will of the Many also has mysterious and possibly dangerous ancient civilization and tech. It's got interesting and complex sort of magic system, Imperials conquering other peoples and what's left their cultures, inequality with the general population, and definitely a lot more going on than meets the eye, and we'll have a bunch of like, holy crap, what is actually happening here type moments that are fun. And then finally, I was trying to think of a mystery that, wasn't just a Sherlock Holmes or an Agatha Christie, something people might not have read. And I thought of the Cadfael series by Ellis Peters. It's set in medieval England. It's based on Cadfael, who's a previous crusader and now a Benedictine monk who has a huge knowledge of like herbs and plants. And he uses that to sort of be the medical examiner / forensic anthropologist of the 1100s. And if you want to watch it instead of read it, it stars the very talented Derek Jacobi and Sean Pertwee, son of
I
the
didn't know
third
about the
Doctor.
Pertwee connection, but my mother was a huge fan of the Cadwell Mysteries, and I didn't realize that that was the same Pertwee. Okay, fantastic. I, too, wanted to give folks a choice to look at a mentor-mentee Holmesian kind of thing that was taking place in a land that never was. This one's a little more historical and definitely more magical. This would be the Master Lee and Number 10 Ox books by Barry Hewart. These books were written from the mid to late 80s. They are The Bridge of Birds, Eight Skilled Gentlemen, and The Story of the Stone. These are amazing mysteries that are filled with Chinese myths and with some magic, but also with bureaucracy and also with corruption. So these are pretty close. They are lighter and they don't have the biopunk aspect of it. It's much more magical. As far as the neurodiversity rep, couple things here. Jeffrey the Very Strange has an aphasic spellcaster. That's by Angel Martinez. For great autism rep, I would recommend The Speed of Dark by Elizabeth Moon. Really one of the best ones I've seen with that. And very recently, I read a book called Sorcery and Small Magics, and that's by Maiga Ducey. And this is a really great thing with the dyslexic spellcaster. In that world, the spells one can be written by somebody, but they can't cast them, and so you have to have a pair. It's a male-male fantasy romance. It's really just quite an enjoyable book, Sorcery and Small Magics by Mike Adusi. So all of those are great books that if you were looking for things that are close to what's happening in the Tainted Cup, definitely do that. I didn't come up with too many kaiju books, but I'm going to have to work on that for the next time. And see if I can't come up with some kaiju books. All right, I'm just going to put in a quick plug for in April or May of 2026. So that means you've only got a couple of months before the third book comes out. So go buy the second book, which is A Job of Corruption, and of course, A Trade of Blood, which is the third book coming out in August. But besides that, I wanted to mention ablegamers.org. This helps people who are disabled who like to play games, hang out with people, and gives them the tools and the ability to continue to hang out with folks. So if you want to combat social isolation through play and possibly set up a fundraiser, to help people play games by playing games. They're a great group, so I recommend Able Gamers, ablegamers.org. And over to you, Keren, for your promo.
I'm going to do my usual plug for the Crime Victims Treatment Center. I volunteer as an advocate for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence with them. They have a ton of great services from counseling to legal help, etc., all of it free. If you want to donate or help, or if you live in the New York City area and perhaps want to train as a volunteer advocate yourself, you can go to cvtcnyc.org.
And Roger does have a quick plug. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, now after the two of you with your social call-outs, I feel a little selfish. It's been a long, long time, it feels like, struggling to get this episode scheduled, and it occurred to me that in between the last time we recorded an episode and this time, I published 3 short stories in anthologies last year.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, awesome.
In August, September, and October. It was interesting how it all played out. 3 short stories, 2 fantasy, traditional fantasy, 1 urban fantasy, and they were published last year. And I've heard good things from people who are close to me, admittedly, so maybe they're biased. I don't know. But if you go to my website at www.rogeralixgoudreau.com, there's information about those stories there. And someday I will be publishing my.
It'll happen.
Someday.
It will. Don't worry. It's going to happen.
You can do it.
I'm redrafting it now. I did a deep read and did my revision plan, and now I had to change so much that I'm redrafting it, but I'm moving.
That's
steadily.
good. That's the best way. Before we go, I just want to tell everybody thank you, especially for Keren jumping in.
Oh, thank you, man. I love being recommended new books and talking
As
about
Colleen
them.
has mentioned several times, I am very good at recommending more books that people need to read, and our TBR is completely booked.
Yes.
Honestly, Eric, I'm retiring from work so I can have as much time to read to be able to read all the books you recommend.
And it's definitely the way to do it. I think we all should. I think I'm on board. Let's get basic income in for everybody, and we can all just become professional book readers for the rest of our lives. I'm on board. But thank you all for coming and doing this again, and I hope you will all come back and we'll do something else, and we'll read something else cool, and we'll bring it to the gamers, and they'll think it's cool too.
And that was The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Thanks so much to Colleen Nachtrieb, Roger Alix Goudreau, and Keren Form for sleuthing out all the mysteries of this book with me. It was, as always, a pleasure to talk books with such great game masters. Join us in 2 weeks when Tom Watkin, Martin Wilson, and Rich Davies join us from the continent of Australia to discuss the amazing dark fantasy graphic novel series Monstrous by Marjorie Liu.
You can find a complete transcript of today's discussion, as well as links to all of our podcasts at k-squareproductions.com/GMBC. You can learn about upcoming episodes on our social media on Blue Sky at gmbookclub.bluesky.social, on Facebook at Game Masters Book Club, on Mastodon at Game Masters Book Club, and on Instagram at Game Masters Book Club. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and comment on our episodes in your chosen podcasting space, and be sure to share those episodes with your gaming community. You've been listening to the Game Masters Book Club, brought to you by me, Eric Jackson, and K-Square Productions. Continued praise and thanks to John Corbett for the podcast artwork and Otis Galloway for our music. Later, gamers, and to paraphrase the great Terry Pratchett, always try to be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape.